Let's see what Ideal Media has to say about the Lexus, the untold story of Toyota's biggest bet.
No single car company has been able to mesh the bank vault coachwork of a Mercedes with the ride quality of a Rolls-Royce, the power of a muscle car with the durability of a Hilux.
Power of a muscle car? They weren't really powerful back in the day, bro.
And road manners of a BMW at import commuter pricing. Until this one came along. This is the story of how the most risk-averse car maker bet it all, risked everything to do what their competitors thought was impossible, and built a new car, a new brand that would in turn unveil some of the highest quality automobiles the world has ever seen, and completely lost the competition along the way. This is the story of Lexus, the billion-dollar gamble.
First things first, I do want to say, I think Lexus is incredibly successful. And, you know, they are Toyota, so their reliability is superior to pretty much all of it. And, well, I was actually, before I looked at the Scirocco, I did look at the IS 250 and the CT 200, the hybrid one that's basically a Prius but looks nicer. Because, well, I believe they are really nice cars. They look really nice, you know. They are reliable and stuff. Also, you know, but like the main issue that I had was they had the CVT transmission, the hybrid one, the CT 200, and I was like, I don't like that. And the other one was a 2.5 liter or 3.5 liter engine, V6. Here in the Netherlands, that's also no go for me for now at least. So I bought this 1.4, 122 horsepower little thingy. But yeah, let's see.
In the early 70s, Japanese cars were the up-and-coming hot take on the old, clunky, inefficient American cars of the time. They were cheaper, better built, cost less to keep on the road, and much, much more efficient. An attractive proposition moving into the gas crisis of the late 70s. And by the 80s, Americans were convinced that brands like Toyota could be trusted, pushing sales figures to an all-time high. But there was a problem. The people who'd bought the cheap, efficient commuters in the 70s had grown up, graduated college, had careers, and had more expendable cash. As a result, they were buying more premium cars. Brands like BMW, Mercedes, Lincoln, and Cadillac had the now enthusiastic luxury sedan market on lock, and drew droves of people into the showrooms with their tech-forward engineering, flashy accessories, classy styling, and, depending on the brand, sporty character. Suddenly, middle-class neighborhoods were filled with the things, and the Japanese manufacturers wanted a piece of the action. Honda spun up Acura, Nissan dreamt up Infiniti, even Mazda was working on a luxury brand. And it was working. The leather-lined, golden-badged Hondas and Nissans were selling out quicker than lozenges the morning after Valentine's Day. But where was Toyota? Enter a man named Yukiyasu Togo, a man who had dedicated his life to improving the Toyota brand. Years back, when Yuki was tasked with improving operations in Thailand, he literally shaved his head and joined a Buddhist ministry in order to better understand the culture. When Canadian operations were under his wings, he would literally go door to door in an attempt to sell cars in some of Toyota's darkest times. To say he was fully dedicated to his career at Toyota is a bit of an understatement. In 1983, Yuki, now freshly appointed chief of US operations, saw the trends of the world, and with the company's 50th anniversary around the corner, he challenged Toyota to do something special. It was time for Toyota to give us their take on what a luxury car should be, and he knew if they were going to break into the market, they'd need to build the best damn car in the world. You see, Toyota's been building luxury cars since the mid-50s with the Crown, and they've had the handcrafted Century in the lineup since 1967. But, much like the Goldilocks story, the existing Crown wasn't quite hot enough to satisfy the market of American tastes. And the Century was already wildly expensive and very specifically built for oligarchs of a smaller stature. Yuki and his team knew they needed to build a whole new car from scratch. Reluctantly, Toyota sent him and a team of 20 hand-picked designers and engineers to America to do some research in the dedicated fashion only Yuki knew how to do, diving headfirst into the culture. Landing right right in the heart of car culture, Orange County, California, the team started scheming ways to study their target market. They started arranging meetings with automotive executives just so their team could sneak through the parking lots and take notes of what people were driving.
They went full private investigator, monitoring what CEOs of major companies chose to drive.
And when they weren't occupied with automotive espionage, they were finding ways to get their hands on the hottest cars Americans were buying, and testing them to their limits. They obsessed over the research. Of course, they drove them around and deconstructed them down to the body shells, but they went as far as building a mock American home, completely furnished, cooling window for your apple pie and all, in Japan, to get the engineers back home in the right mindset. They found the Cadillacs had the best air conditioning, the Mercedes had the most bank vault feel, the BMW's the most fun to drive. Their new car would have to beat them all at their own game. And to throw another stick in the spokes, it had to be quiet as a Rolls-Royce, safe as a Volvo, have a drag coefficient smaller than Porsche's 911, and weigh less than 4,000 pounds.
Oh, and it had to cost less than all of the competition.
That is serious dedication right there.
By 1985, all the research was compiled and put into creating their first prototype. Entering development, apparently most of the engineers simply said it couldn't be done and attempted to walk out. Surely, you can't have the best of all worlds, unless your chief engineer is named Ichiro Suzuki. After several renditions with various drivetrains, they ran into their first ungodly expensive roadblock. Their all-new car was gonna need an all-new engine. And here's where the gamble part comes in. See, Toyota had money, but they didn't get rich by taking risks. They'd consistently poured their cash into cheaper to build cars that were basically guaranteed to sell in their respective markets. And they justified development costs of things like new engines across several models within the company. A bespoke engine aimed at a single moonshot luxury car? That'd be expensive. And with the amount of research and development they knew they were gonna have to put into it, well, that could seriously eat into the bottom line. $400 million and an entire team of top-class engineers built no less than 973 engine prototypes until we were presented with the smoothest V8 the world had ever seen. The final version of the 1UZ was torture tested way beyond industry standard, logging several million miles in a torture chamber. And at this point, with the money already spent on the drivetrain, well, there was no turning back. This car had to work. Interior was next on the list. Inspired by private jets and taking notes from the most luxurious cars on the planet, the internally titled F1 had some of the most comfortable seats, bar none. Months of studying created a layout that put the most used functions closest to the driver's reach, emphasizing convenience and comfort without gimmicks. An HVAC system with swinging vents, memory functions that controlled the seats, mirrors, headrests, and seatbelts. An instrument cluster that still looks great to this day, with its tinted face and seemingly floated gauges. Leather grown from free-range cows that aren't fenced in by barbed wire. And trim built by the master piano craftsmen at Yamaha. To nail ride quality, Lexus developed an automatic self-leveling suspension system that rides on air and adjusts your ride height based on inputs from throttle position and speed. But while it had to float down the road at least as well as the S-Class, it had to have road feel like the BMW. So they turned to NASCAR legend Roger Penske to fine-tune the car's handling to perfection. Engineers and designers worked tirelessly in perfect harmony under strict guidelines. If any change to the car altered the weight by more than 1 kilogram, Suzuki himself had to authorize it. They developed innovative ways to eliminate vibration with hydraulic engine mounts and a slight pitch to the drivetrain to keep the driveshaft perfectly straight. See, they couldn't just pack the thing with sound deadening. No, that'd be way too heavy. So they engineered the whole car so it just didn't make sound in the first place. They disassembled and torture tested nearly every single component of every competitor's car to design out failure points. And then every single component of the test mules was put through otherworldly abuse, all in the hopes to skirt the depreciation problem other luxury cars had. While development thus far had cost a staggering amount of money and resources, they hadn't yet hashed out what would become one of the most difficult parts of the process: the final design, and maybe more so, what they were going to call it. To create design that has true impact and stands out from the competition is a feat in and of itself. But to do it in a way that completely changes perception is another. Demanding that a full-size sedan be more aerodynamically efficient than Porsche's 911, safety and aerodynamic standards become a designer's worst nightmare. 60 designers, 1,400 engineers, 2,300 technicians, 450 complete prototypes, and years of combined man-hours later, the team had finally landed on something that corporate didn't hate. And then, a bunch of executives at Toyota America nearly lost their jobs when they told Toyota their new car needed to come from a new car company. The Japanese higher-ups took personal offense to the Toyota name not being good enough, but reluctantly, they gave in. After $1 billion in 6 years of development, the very first Lexus was born. The relentless pursuit of perfection would become the tagline plastered across 1980s advertising staples like disgusting cable TV and billboards across the country. On launch, the marketing team at Lexus took direct shots at the competition with some outlandish but valid claims. They took an LS400 with 100,000 miles on it and stacked fancy glasses 5 rows high on the hood. Then they ran it up to 145 miles an hour on the dyno, and the glasses didn't even vibrate the liquid inside. They held the press launch in Germany and let journalists drive it and its competition back to back on the Autobahn. If that's not a direct kick in the teeth to Mercedes, I don't know what is. While corporate was taking direct shots at the competition, the rest of the company scrambled to get ready to launch the new Lexus dealerships and service centers. And these wouldn't be anything like just any other dealership. They were built with premium high-class finish work and filled with designer art and furniture. Having an espresso machine free to potential customers was an actual requirement. So was the bespoke perfume they pumped into the stores. These weren't really dealerships. They were customer experience centers. Almost instantly, consumers were falling in love with their top-tier quality, performance, and efficiency, all while costing 30 to 40% less than the equivalent BMW or Benz. And it was light enough to skirt the gas guzzler tax. In the brand's second year, Lexus nearly quadrupled sales of the LS400, completely cornering the luxury market, and quite literally wiped the floors with the tears of Mercedes-Benz. So much so that it sent them spiraling into what would become known as the worst era of Mercedes ever built when they tried to cut costs and compete with Lexus pricing.
And that's a story for another time.
Of course, it wasn't all smooth sailing. Just 3 months after the first customers received their cars, 3 separate issues were revealed, 2 of which were safety concerns. 8,000 cars had been sold. And even so it appeared it was only 3 cars affected, Lexus offered to pick every single one of them up, repair it, wash it, polish it, and return it with a full tank of fuel.
That's
Today,
so nice.
The billion-dollar gamble has transformed into Toyota's trillion-dollar idea. Because after the initial success of the LS, customers were left begging for more. Curating luxury versions of Toyotas from all across the range, new Lexuses were popping up left and right, even further stealing food off the Germans' plates. And the hits just kept coming. The RX, the GS, the IS, the LX, and of course, perhaps the greatest halo car the world has ever seen, the Lexus LFA. This has been the story of Lexus, the billion-dollar gamble. Thank you all so much for watching, and if you enjoyed this,
So that's it. Okay. Well, I would love to own a 400 Lexus 400 LS, but they are still kind of expensive here. And also a V8 here, yes, but expensive, but because it's so old, they have we have an old timers taxes, so it's probably affordable. But it's just, it's really old, That's like the main issue that I have. If I was in America, I would gladly go for that car. I would pay $1,000, maybe 2, not more than that though, for a nice Lexus. When I went to college, I did look for some cars like an SC300 with the 2JZ on it. But before I got there, they were all sold out, and then the prices went up drastically for some reason, and all that. But yeah, thank you for watching me and Rap God, and bye.